Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a .NET Core Web API and the database design for an app from the scratch using ChatGPT. That's it. We're going to ask some questions how to do it, and we're going to follow the instructions with a very little knowledge. Someone can actually create in next 15-20 minutes of a wonderful working .NET Core Web API application with the database. Come, let's dive in. So when I started thinking of creating a web API using ChatGPT, I was wondering what kind of application I should create. And I was just working with my own app and wondering how this is going to respond. And I decided to create a cake website. Okay, a website which sells all different types of cake. So if you look at this, I have asked a question of that I wanted to create a cake shop with, and so provide me an SQL database. And you should also consider that the cakes can be used for various occasions. It's not just for specific purpose. It's not for birthday. The cakes are meant for anyone, any purpose, right? So I'm asking question in such a nice way, and it has responded with a table details. Okay, so I copied that content which was received. Okay, and then I'm also going to tell that I have to create a .NET Core application and give me the instruction. So now it has given at a high level instruction of like, okay, go create project, do this, and then finally like 8 steps. Okay, and then it is telling that to create it, but they're all high level. Let's start with the database. So I copy pasted whatever was sent by the ChatGPT. Okay, but if you look at this, someone who doesn't know about SQL, they cannot do this, right? It just says, okay, there are three tables. The first table is cake, and you can see the field name separated by the pipe symbol, and the next one is database. So this is something that someone who knows about SQL will understand. But what if I don't know the SQL itself? Like I have no idea of the SQL. So how do I elaborately ask this question? So like I said right in my previous video, the more you ask properly, the more you get. So what I have given now is I'm asking a question that I need a SQL script to create a table, and then the table definition is given below. So I'm providing back whatever it has sent me and then asking to give me a complete script. Okay, so let's see what happens. See, now it gave me a create table script, which I will copy paste this, and there will be some here and there small mistakes. That's because of how we asked. You see this extra comma, you can just remove that. And similarly, I'm going to ask the same question for the rest of the two tables. So what happens is when we ask such questions, okay, so it's the more elaborately properly you ask, the more precisely the response will be. See, now I'm doing for the second table, which is for the orders, and the third table for the customers. So once I have done with these queries, you can see the conversation going on in the chat. Okay, that's a chat application that you saw in the previous video. So I got the three tables. Literally, if I create these three tables, the tables are created. I can actually see these tables. You can see almost the relationship are also created. You can see the cake ID from the cake table going to the orders table. Orders table is also having the customer ID, which is in the customer table. All these things are fine, but if you see carefully, all these table doesn't have any relationship. So I asked another question that, hey, these are the table definitions, give me the relationship and give me SQL script also. Now the AI is so intelligent that it thought that I'm asking fresh question with this definition, and it gave me the complete table creation script again. So I'm going to copy completely and going to go there and put here. Now I will rearrange this and show you the difference. Okay, I'm going to comment out the previous one, though that is also correct. Now if you see, there's the only difference is all these varchar doesn't have the character limits. If you don't specify the character limit, it will be considered as only one character. Okay, that's the only flaw that I can see in this script. Other than that, everything is good. Okay, so I copy pasted that the varchar 255 and all those things, and if I created this, now you see there are three beautiful tables properly created along with the complete foreign key relationship. Okay, so cake table is separate, cake ID can go to an order. An order can be placed only by the customer, so orders will have customer ID and the cake ID. Very good, right? So we got a perfect database with three good tables relationship. Okay, now let's start with the Visual Studio. I'm gonna follow what it is saying, though I know how to create it, right? I'll follow the instructions given by ChatGPT because any fresher can also, who's new to this language, also can learn. So I'm gonna follow that. Open up the Visual Studio, go and search for the ASP.NET Core web app. So instead of web app, I know we are going to look for the API. So I'm gonna click on ASP.NET Core web API. Okay, so once you click this, you can say next, and these are the steps that you generally do to create the project. Okay, so I'm gonna name the project as Cake Shop. Okay, so the Cake Shop, and then you see there are two versions currently as of this recording. 7 is the latest and 6 is the one, right? But if you clearly see, 6 is the long-term support version, 7 is not the long-term. So I'm going to use 6 instead of 7. Okay, I will be supported until 2024, so I will use 6, which is already installed. If you have not installed, probably you can ask both how to install it. Then it will tell you what kind of DLL, what kind of setup that you need to have this .NET Core. That also you can do. All right, let's assume we have this installed, and once you select all these things, you can click on create. I'm not going to demonstrate anything on the minimal API, so I will be not checking that checkbox. Okay, so we're going to create a regular web API. Okay, now the web API, now all these setups are done. Click on create. Okay, so it's going to create that project. Let's wait for a few seconds. Okay, the project has been created. Now I asked a question how to generate the web API database model. Okay, so before we do that, let's go and install the packages that it asked us to install it, right? So if you see the initial instructions, after you create the project, it asked us to install a couple of NuGet packages. So I'm gonna go and do one by one. So the first one was the Microsoft Entity Framework Core .SQL Server. So here the .NET Core that we are using is 6. So I would go with 6. Whatever version is the latest version. I'll not install 7. That's my personal opinion, so that it doesn't break anything. So I'm gonna install that. So now this is installed. You can see the other one. The other one is the entity framework design, and the other one, right? There are two things. So let's quickly go and install both of the other two packages. Okay, so I will be choosing the same 6.0.13 version to install. So now the design project, you can go select, change this version, install it. So the third one is the tools. Let's quickly go, let's not waste time. All right, the third one is also done, right? So all the three are done. Let's change it. Now the next thing is, let's go ahead and create a folder called models. Okay, so under the models, I need to create a class. Okay, so I need to create a class called any class, and then that should support the DB context. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create a class called kick DB context that should be inherited by the DB context. Once you bring in the DB context, you can bring in the namespace, which is coming from entity framework, and you can also refactor by clicking on control period. It will give you an option to generate the constructor, which I did. Okay, so that step is done. You can see I'm on the 4th step. Okay, the next thing is, it is asking us to migrate and then create a database. Okay, so now I'm going to ask some question to it. I didn't understand this, right? So I mean, from a fresher perspective, I don't understand what it is asking me to do. So I'm going to re-ask a different question to the ChatGPT AI. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is, hey, I have this table definition. How do I create a model for this table definition? Because I even don't know how to create a model. That is my intention, right? So if I do that, if I just say, hey, this is the table definition, generate a model class for the table definition, and it should also have the data annotation to support the entity framework. So once I do this, see, it is giving me literally a class for that the one that you created. So let's go and click on the class creation. I'm going to copy paste it. I'm not doing anything else. Now if you see, you might see some errors. That's basically because the reference packages are not there. So control period on that error will give you a suggestion of what using class needs to be brought in, and that's it, we brought. Now all these green color is because in database all these fields are nullable. That's why it's saying change these things as nullable. If you define not nullable based on the definition, here it will not give you such green color. Now we have two more classes, right? One is cake, one is orders, one is customers. I'm going to quickly create orders and customers class, exactly what we did for the cake. It means I will be asking the AI that, hey, this is my definition, give me a C# class which for this definition. So that is what I'm asking, and it gave me literally. And see, I'm putting one by one, even the foreign key relationship I'm putting, and it is giving me a proper C# Poco class. Okay, so I'm going to quickly do the same thing. I'm bringing up, I'm beautifying it. See, the foreign key, everything came. You just need to bring in the namespace. Okay, alright, so now if you see there's some small error, that's because of the customer. So let's go to customers and change it. See, now it started working. Alright, that's a very minor issues, okay, that we can change by ourselves. Alright, so you see all these chats. I will finally give you what was the chat that was made. Now we know we have created these things, right? So now what I'm saying is, hey, generate the properties for the model classes, right? So once you have the DB context, you need to have the model classes also, right? The three classes, and it gave me much elaborated information. Okay, so in that I'm going to pick up only what I want, because I know at least something about entity framework. I'm going to pick up these properties alone. I don't need the rest of the override on model creating. We don't need that. That's basically a database definition. We already created it. So I'm going to copy these three, and if I go to the cake DB context and place it under this constructor, okay, that's it. See, there is not even error, just a comma. So change the comma, remove the comma, and you're done. Now you see the DB context is created. Okay, now what we have to do, the next thing is we have to take the connection string. See, I'm asking for a connection string, sample connection string, and it is even giving me connection string. So I am going to change the database alone. So I changed the database and the connection string is ready. So this is the database that we have. So we have all those things ready, right? So what is the next thing? I'm asking, provide me a C# code that includes the database option for the .NET Core Web API, which means the database connection is there, database is there, model is there. How do I configure it, right? How do I integrate this into the .NET Core? And we are using .NET Core 6.0. Now if you see, this is the place where you can find the program.cs. There is no startup .cs. You can actually add it, but it has not created elaborately. So with this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this the instruction that was given. So I have to add the add DB context for a service builder, and I have to provide these connection string information. Okay, so literally I'm going to copy paste. See, though it gave me all the information in this question, like what I have supposed to do, go to this app settings, create a connection string, under the connection string give a connection string values, all those things, but we already did that. So now what we want is we have to just add this builder.services.add database, like add DB context, and then provide this. Now I don't know how to install the SQL server, because SQL server was giving me error. Right now it is even telling me what Nukesh package is missing. So I'm quickly going and installing the packages. That error went off. The last error is the configuration.get connection string. See here, the get configuration can be, the configuration can be received by builder.configuration. That is what it will give you, I configuration. Okay, so now with that said, you also started seeing .get connection string is working. So it is going to come there, take the connection string, and the name is DB context. Okay, now almost everything is done. I'm asking, give me a controller class. Okay, so I'm telling, create a controller in C# code and just generate the get endpoint alone for the cake class. So whatever it gave, I'm copy pasting it, just formatting the code here. Okay, for now, if you see, instead of all this namespaces I brought in, there was only one only one endpoint. Okay, there's some error. That's because I changed that K controller to home controller, right? So that's why this is just for demo. See now, if I run, it's not coming up. So what else is missing? Because weather forecast controller is coming, I'm going to go and verify what is missing. All right, so this is missing, and we have not put the annotation call that this is an API controller. Now once I do this and rerun this, okay, if I do a hot reload, it will basically ask this question. So if I rerun this application, now I should start seeing my home controller also. You see this? This is the definition of the model that we will return. Okay, so it's an array of this kind of model, and model is nothing but a cake model. So let's click on try it out. Okay, execute, and then you saw the result. All right. So there is another beautiful way. Instead of asking AI, we can ask the Visual Studio itself. So right click on the controller, create a new controller, go to this API and click on the third one. You see this click on third one is basically creating an actions for all the verbs for using the entity framework. So it's going to create get, put, post, delete, patch, everything for the cake. So we're going to select the cake model, and then the controller will be the cake's controller. Okay, so it's one-to-one. Each entity will have their own controller. Now see, our Visual Studio started generating the code that we have already set up. Everything is very beautiful. We don't need to ask all these codes to the AI itself. The power of Visual Studio itself, it brought up all the code. Now if I run this, you see this is really crazy, right? We didn't do anything fancy. With all the intelligence with the Visual Studio on, with use of AI, the ChatGPT, we were able to generate database, we were able to generate the controller, and you can see the controllers also started working. Now if I started to post a cake information, okay, you see this, I'm giving the input, the request body of what is required for the cake to be generated, entry in the cake table to be generated. So if I enter all these things quickly, okay, executing this, what will happen? It will send a request to the post method of the cake controller, and this entity will be created using the entity framework. Now code is generated by the entity framework, I mean the Visual Studio, so it was able to hit. And I'm seeing some errors. That's because based on the database design that we have, it is saying it is not allowing null. So why it is giving us null? It's because we sent 0 as the ID. Okay, so if you send 1 and hit, it got created. Ideally, if you correct the database a little more, if you fine tune it, you will not even see this problem. So basically I'll show you what is going on. Okay, so 1 is created, and if I go to and click on the get endpoint, I'm able to get the response. So what happened, what went wrong? You see this, there is nothing called identity. Identity means auto generation of a column content. Okay, so if you put identity 1,1, the column cake ID doesn't need to be sent with a number, and that is how we have to do. We should not be sending our number by our own. Okay, it will have more problems. Okay, so you can use this identity 1,1 for all the other 3 tables also, for the customer ID, for the cake ID, for the order ID. Now I'm going to drop all these tables and recreate it, so you can see without sending the cake ID you will be able to send the information. Okay, so let's quickly drop this table. Okay, alright, tables are dropped. I'm going to recreate all the 3 tables. So before I create, like I said, I wanted to put this identity for these 2 tables. Okay, you can put it for the order ID also. Okay, now let me go and execute the same thing without cake ID. Okay, now we have a new database design, so execute it. See, now we didn't get any error, it started creating it. And if you change it, some of the information, okay, so there is no super validation, but if you change it, it will create a second one. And if you go to the get and hit on try it now, you started seeing 2 things that automatically got generated, the cake IDs. That's because of the identity 1,1. Okay, now similarly, how we make this cake controller, I'm going to fast forward and show you how we will make exactly the customer's controller and the orders controller. Okay, in order to save time, I'm just fast forwarding it, and whatever I'm doing is exactly same. Right click, create the controllers. Now you see this web application itself is done. The web API itself is done, at least to a working condition. Okay, though it may not have very fancy validations, but at least it will work. So if you go and create a customers, it will create a customer. Okay, customer is created. Now let's place an order for a cake, the first order. Okay, so based on the current design, you can see you need to provide these information for creating an order. So what it means is, okay, so there, if you remember, order ID was not identity, so that's why you have to pass an order ID here. But if you place order also, I mean the order ID also identity 1,1, okay, which you can do it by yourself. If you do this, then you don't need to specify this order ID. Okay, anyway, I haven't dropped the table, so I'll continue with this. Now here, ideally speaking, you don't need to provide the cake and the customer model inside the order. Okay, but the application that we generated, it's all generated, we didn't do anything. Okay, so based on the fact what it is there, it is asking us to send the cake and the customer information also in one shot. So one request providing all this information, it will create the customers, it will create the cake, it will create an order also. Okay, so if you execute like this, it will probably say 400 error that these two are missing. But if you watch my previous the similar API YouTube video, you will see without all these things how you can properly add the entities and their relative tables content. Okay, so for now, let's proceed with providing the cake and the customer information also. Okay, so I'm giving some cake number as 3 because I already know cake 1 and 2 was already present. So I'm giving cake ID as 3, and customer ID also I'm going to give. Okay, like say you can give any number. Okay, so and then all these names are not really important for a demo, so I'm basically assume that I'm providing all the required information. And with that said, if you execute, it will come here. Okay, so I'm gonna navigate one by one, and it was created. Okay, so it's giving me some error. All right, so what is the error? So basically, again, it is again saying the same thing. Hey, for the cakes and the customer table, you already have this identity set, so do not pass the identity number. Okay, so we have to remove these two things. Okay, so that's the error. So based on the error itself, we can find out. Now that's it. If I execute now, it is going to create a new cake and then a new customer and then a new order. You see this order is created, and you will see the order details coming up here. Great. All right, so we were able to create a brand new application in 15-20 minutes. If you see, we were able to design a database, we were able to correct all this basic information. In 15-20 minutes, you were able to finish a cake application that supports the UI, okay, the web API, and then you are ready to deploy also. Even if you start asking questions to AI how to deploy, it is going to guide you how to deploy it. Okay, so now that's how the beauty of the ChatGPT and along with the power of the Visual Studio. I hope you know how to do this and try crazy things with this, but always please remember to use the newer technology in a good way. So let me know in the comment section how it was. If you like my video, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, write a comment in the comment section what you like about this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you like my video, don't forget to subscribe my channel, like it, share it, comment it, and never forget to click on the bell icon.